Good evening, everyone. I hope you are all well. We apologize for the late start. We had some technical glitches on Makashule's side, but he will be joining shortly. I hope you're all well on this Sunday afternoon. Feeling a bit tired this evening. We were away during our strategic planning week as the National Leadership Collective. And so we spent a bit of time just thinking and planning over the weekend. So it's been a bit of a tough weekend, but we are here. So for those who are joining us for the first time, good evening and welcome to the RISE Mzansi Fireside Chats. Essentially, it's an open platform that we've designed for the public to get to know RISE Mzansi, to get to know some of the leaders of RISE Mzansi. But going forward, we're also going to use this as a platform to have conversations widely about all things RISE and all things South Africa. So welcome to everybody. On this warm spring evening, I've got my fellow compatriot, Makashule Gana, who is our Chief Organiser for RISE Mzansi. And yeah, what a pleasure to have this moment to get to know a bit about Makashule. We're going to get personal. We'll talk a little bit about RISE, but I think today we want to spend a lot more time getting to know Makashule and who he is, who is the man behind the big title. For those who don't know me, the name is Tebogo Moalusi. I am both the national spokesperson for RISE Mzansi, but recently also honored to have been given the responsibility to run Gauteng on behalf of RISE Mzansi. So I'm the provincial convener for Gauteng. Looking forward to organizing and building up our support base in this beautiful province, a complex province, a big province, but also a very important province within the South African landscape, the socio-political and economic landscape. I think Makashule continues to have technical glitches. I see he looks stuck. There, Ghana, can you hear me? Oh dear, the gremlins are not working with us today. Ghana, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. You were stuck there for a bit. Luckily, the face that you had wasn't a horrible one. So you know how these things happen. Depending on where you get stuck, it can look terrible. But Lida, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening to you. I'm good, and it's been a hectic weekend. Hectic weekend of work. Just finished a couple of hours ago. Got home, and I greeted the kids, the family, and now I'm opening myself up to not only people within RISE, but anyone else that is watching and following this conversation. And I like to greet them as well and thank them for tuning in, listening into this conversation. And I hope it will be a lot more, those questions that people have been wanting to ask me or they've been dying to ask me. I'll try to answer them as truthfully as I know them to be. Because sometimes people ask questions that they've got answers to, but now let's not get too overly serious, but connect with the audience that's following this. And yeah, any question, I'm good to go.
Fair game. Everything is fair game. It's a fireside chat, so it can get hot around the fire, depending on how close you sit, to the mbaula. So let's get right into it. So, I mean, I always start here to say that, what's in the name? I know that frequently you correct people to say Makashule Gana.
Yeah.
So tell us about the gift of your name and what it means. Do you have any others? What has it meant to carry the name Makashule? I think you're the only Makashule that I know. So perhaps you can give us a bit of insight in terms of the name and its history and its meaning.
All right. So as I understand it, Makashule is a Tsonga name closely linked to being a pioneer. So I'm named after my great grandfather. So he was Makashule Gana Mhlongo. So the surname Gana, it's not it doesn't have like many generations. So it's a fairly new surname. So the surname it's Mhlongo. And so I use my mother's surname. So I don't use my father's surname. Ghana is my mother's surname. But then when I was born, even though traditionally I would not be a Ghana in a way because it's my mother whose surname is Ghana. But after I was born, the family felt that I need to be named after the great Ghana in the family. So that's where the name comes from, and the significance of the name in the family itself. And I come from Lifara village. So the Ghana family comes from that part of the world in Mzansi. Others, when I say I'm from Mzansi, they say, hey, Lifara is far from Mzansi. It's 27 kilometers from Mzansi. So you are not from Mzansi, you are from Lifara. So you must state clearly where you're from. But sometimes to better explain things, you tend to say the closest town. And if it's someone that comes from the area or is familiar with the area, then we name the chief that we are under, and the chief that we are under is Chief Mhlaba. So now, like saying, no, my father, Kamhlaba Tumangeni. So Tumangeni means it's a place of peanuts. So there are a lot of peanuts that side, and I love peanuts. So it's one of those things.
Yeah. And Lefara, tell us a bit about your childhood and your teenage growing experience. What are some of the defining moments that you think have shaped who you are? And tell us a bit about family life. RISE Mzansi is really passionate about family. It's actually the individual and family is one of the pillars and the themes that we use for the People's Convention and highlighted in our People's Declaration. So maybe give us a sense of family life and the beginnings and big moments.
Well, thanks. So I was raised by a single mother. I'm a second child of three, the middle one. So I've got an elder sister who's 3 years older than me, and a younger brother who's 3 years younger than me. So born 40 years ago. Sometimes I like saying that I was born in the year of the UDF. I was born in the year, politically, I would say I was born in the year of the tricameral parliament, not necessarily the birth of the UDF. So, though one, is raised by a single mother, I never really felt that the absence of my father was kind of an impediment. And I'll go to the upbringing because there were uncles, so when you come to the village and you say no, you are coming to the Ghana family. At least now because now people have grown. We used to stay together. So there were like four stands that were closer to each other. We are all neighbors, and that's where we all grew up in. So my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, and my grandmother had their own homestead stand. His younger brother was his neighbor. He had also the wife and the kids. And then when my mother, after I think it would have been after my birth, had her own stand, which was the neighbor. And then also my aunt also had a stand that it's also a neighbor. So there were these four families or four stands. It was one family. It was the Gana family, and we grew up as a single family. So we were brothers. Obviously some like English. Like you get this English or Western, but my aunt is my mother. So we never, these things of aunt was much more on the father's side, but from the mother's side, like was like she's like my mother, and we're all brothers and sisters, and then there were cousins from our uncle's side. So we grew up in that. It was a very, very close knit family. It still is. We still do a lot of things together. So one never really felt, let me call it, the absence of a father figure, because my uncles were there. Even though they were working here in Johannesburg in the mines, and one was more. The younger one was studying at the time, but you always got like that kind of support from the male figures in the broader family. So that was the family setup. So one grows up there. So my grandfather. So we had cattle in the family. We had goats. And I mean, like, we had cattle, we had goats, we had pigs, we had a lot of chickens. So it was much more a self-sustaining family, and there were fields where throughout the year the family will plant, for subsistence, much more subsistence farming rather than commercial. But there was never that thing that sometimes it's dry and you don't get a lot of produce from the land. But that is the setup that one grows up in. So from a very young age, I first started by herding goats, because you're a young boy. You need to also contribute. Everyone contributes one way or the other. So one starts by herding goats, and as one grows, we called it. It was more like of a graduation. Like when you move from herding goats to now be given the responsibility of herding cattle, because cattle in our culture, like it's a serious investment. You used to pay lobola with it. You used to, when my uncle, that gave me the other name of Stanford. His name is Clifford. So he decided that I must be called Stanford because he was Clifford. So I'm explaining things that I used to see. So I don't know what happened before I was born. But to pay for his studies, my grandfather will then have to sell the cattle so that he get the money to then take him to school. So those cattle took him to school. Unfortunately, we had a very very, very serious drought in, it was around about 93, 92, 93. It was a serious drought, so we lost a significant number of livestock during that drought. So yeah, and one still tries to. I still have a few cows, but it's not as many as they used to. It was one of the biggest crops in the village in terms of the number of cattle that we had. So that's on the family growing up, head boy from a young age. And yeah, there's a responsibility in heading cattle. And you head from the bag. That's what it is, and you must trust that cow that's in front there. They must also almost get to know and listen to you. There's a relationship that you actually build with the cattle. If you look after them properly. When they see you, they know that it's time to go home, and then they just have to go home. So that's the kind of setup. And because most boys my age were also doing it, it was just a normal thing. It was not something that was abnormal. So sometimes when we say these things, whether it's being brought up by a single mother, whether one is grew up as a head boy, I don't say it because it's a special kind of a day. I say it because most people in the village were living the kind of life that I was living. Like you go to the village even now, you see a number of families that are raised, or many kids that are raised by single mothers. So when I say that I was raised by a single mother, it's not a special case. It was almost like, a significant number of my age mates, even now, are raised by single mothers.
Thanks, leader. And we've got some amazing, comments from various people who know you. Michael speaks about the fact that you are an inspiration. A few people are saying good evening. Some people from Limpopo, as you represent your hometown. But maybe let me ask you this: you then go to school, and then you go to university. What did you study, and how has your transition been into kind of the world of politics? How did that happen?
Yeah, thanks. I'll just take you through a short journey of my schooling. So one does a primary in the village, and sometimes you'll go to school barefoot. And it was not an abnormal. Sometimes when we see it now, it's like, it's like, hey, it was a suffering. But because you are, there are many people that are in the same situation as you, like you kind of accept. Actually, when one was starting my grade, my sub A, I know, there might be people that are like, hey, what is that, sub A?
You're showing your age here. You're showing your age. Your UTF age is coming through now.
Yeah, I started during the time of sub A. We used to attend under a tree, because you see, like the school, Mushoti Primary School, that's the first school that I attended, only had seven classrooms. Six classrooms for 7 grades. So one of the classes also doubled as a staff room. So we start, under the tree. Then sometimes you get combined with the sub B class, and we use the bench. I don't know many who would remember. So there was a bench
Yeah.
So and the thing is, I was still doing well as a standard 2 at the present day grade 4. So but then I had to return back to standard 1. This was in 1991 and 1990 actually, 1990, because I started my schooling in 1988. So 1990, I was doing my standard 1, now at the grade 3. So progressed to junior secondary. So we didn't have a junior secondary in the village. So I had to attend in the next village. So every day you go to school, you have to cross a river. But everyone was doing it. So it was not like I'm suffering. We were equally suffering, all of us, in pursuit of education. But luckily for me, they then built. At the time, we said it's a school because we attended. It was like a shack. It was a shack. The first junior secondary in the village. It was actually makeshift classrooms. But I got my uncle, the one that I spoke about, who had an influence on me, and I'll speak about him when I talk about my entry into politics. So I'll finish this part of my life and then get into my entry into politics. So he was a teacher. So he bought a house in the township of Nkwankoa. So he then took me to stay with him. So I then moved from the village to the township. And that's why I did my standard 7, grade 9. Because I understand that sometimes the audience, we might have the young ones that when you start talking standard 7, it's like, what are you talking about? It's like you are an ancestor. So standard 7, I'm in the township. So that's the time that I moved from the village, 1996. Moved from the village to the township. Like I was saying earlier, that I used to write this, these maths and science, competitions, and also scholarship bursary. So there was an opportunity in 1996 to write this exam. So they wanted the best 10 students at the secondary then, secondary, and I was in the top 10. I had to write this exam to get a bursary to go to boarding school, and I was fortunate enough to succeed in that regard. which sent me to boarding school in Guyana. That's where you learn independence. Boarding school, you go there when the term starts, you go home when the term ends. There's no time. There were no phones then. If I wanted to talk to my mother, I'll call her at work, and then use a public phone. For others who are new, they might not know that we used to have public phones and quick phones. That one, when you say hello, 2 rand, it's gone. 2 rand was big money at the time. So between 97 and 99, I was at boarding school. So 97, I had just turned 13, going 14. So I started school before I turned 5 years. And it was normal. It was not. There were many people who are born the same age as me who started. So 3 years spent at in boarding school. For our class was the maths and science. So I was quite. I think I did fairly well as a math student. Metric results are not a true reflection. I can tell you that. Many people who look at my metric result are like, but what happened? Because I'm going to tell you something now. So in metric, I get a D for mathematics. I know why I got a D, but I got a D for mathematics. Then I go to university. When I go to university, I then register the University of Limpopo, Teflop. Then it was the University of the North. I then registered to take mathematics and computer science as a major subject.
Yeah.
So here's this boy from the village. It's got a D in mathematics.
Yeah.
Now it has this thing that it wants to measure in mathematics. How is that possible? I like that. And I actually, my first degree was it was a Bachelor of Science in mathematics and computer science. That's why at times, and I know people judge. Yes, because you don't have anything to refer, you look at the metric result and you're like, this one cannot succeed here. So I got a D in mathematics at metric. And then I went to university and I measured in mathematics. And I got a significant number of distinctions in mathematics at university. So that was my first degree, which is the Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and Computer Science. So, like when I got to university, because I was already political, my political mind was there. So I joined within the first 2 weeks of me getting to university. I was already a member of SASCO. Yeah, already a member of SASCO. 2 weeks. Yes, this one from the village, from Guyana. Now get into politics. It affected me a bit. Just juggling my love for politics and my studies. So as a result, I failed one module of computer science in my first year. So that because I wanted to major in computer science, it meant that I had to spend 4 years in university doing a 3-year degree. But sometimes it's out of failure that you kind of learn the most. I learned a lot during that period. But the other thing, it's also when you get to university, because we are from Limpopo, everyone is there. There aren't a lot of people that you like let me say are leaving university. So not a lot of my friends left university at that time.
Yeah.
So it was like an extra year. What is an extra year? If you are you are committed to what you want to achieve. So that's a brief in terms of my education journey from primary, boarding school, getting a D in mathematics, but be brave enough to get to university to say that I'm going to major in mathematics.
Yeah. And then Sasco to Democratic Alliance. Jeez, what happened? Why how did that happen?
So I think like there's something about it. I'm a little rebel at times. A rebel in a sense that I don't like going with the wind. And I like questioning things. So my uncle introduced me to politics at a very young age. So after, let's say, after Mandela is released, one gets to start getting a lot more in terms of political literature, and getting to read a lot more. And I still remember events that happened even that time, that time of early 90s, because we grew up in what you call in the homeland of Gazankulu. So I'm just charging a phone. So we grow up in that.
Oh dear. Sorry, folks. We seem to have lost Makashule. He was trying to charge his phone and he probably pressed something by mistake. But I'm sure he'll be back shortly. So yeah, in the meantime, for those who have just joined us, we're having a conversation with our national part of our national leadership collective, Makashule Gana. He is the chief organizer of the organization, and we've chatted a bit about his growing up in Limpopo. He shared a bit about growing up in as a boy from the village, in a single parent home, and how at the time because you're staying with so many people and the conditions are pretty much the same, you don't realize or you don't even feel that you are lesser than. From going to school, not wearing school shoes, to learning and studying under a tree, to crossing rivers in order to get to school. It was kind of a normalized and in some instances a fun experience because that's what everybody is experiencing. So that's some of the interesting stories he shared, but he's also shared how he grew up being a herd boy, and interestingly, some of the greatest leaders this country has seen, whether in business or in politics, all started there. So perhaps it was natural that Makashule would end up being a successful politician, because we know how herdsmen and shepherds have been successful politicians in many instances. But thanks for joining us, Ghana. I was just keeping everybody the seat warm whilst you were getting your connection back up. But yeah, you were talking about your uncle and getting into politics, being introduced into politics. And then we were quickly going to segue into, the journey. Why the DA? Yeah. And what happened in the DA?
It's a 20-year history there on its own.
Yeah.
So one starts, as I was saying, that because my uncle remains an ANC activist to this day. That's one thing about my family, we are liberal like that. You have ANC, you have DA, you have even that we have even EFF. So our choices are not determined, like or predetermined. If you want to go wherever you want to go, there's space, no one fights you. So early on, one is influenced into the politics of the ANC. And I must say, the 1999 elections, I like referencing it many times when I talk to people. I'm doing my matric, and there was this short guy, who wanted to be the president, and he came to Guyana. And I still remember his opening line after the salutations, when he said the people have spoken. I mean, like that one. I mean, like this 16-year-old just got so much into politics that you get to SASCO, become an activist within SASCO the same year, because I was too young to join the ANC Youth League then. So then get to join the ANC Youth League. But then, you start questioning, all right, I was socialized in the ANC or politicized in the ANC. Does it mean that one has to die in the ANC? And I started let me search around and check the political parties that were there. But I won't bore you with my assessment of the political parties that were there, why I didn't join any of them. And so the DA appealed on so many fronts. One, it had a lot of problems. So it was like a forest. It was like this thing. There's no path. So just know that if you get there, you are alone. But you can also create a path for others to then walk for the next generation, not to have to go through what you have to go through. You have to cut down the tree so that you can see and you can walk. It had a lot of challenges, but their politics kind of appealed to me then, like a bit radical, challenging the status quo. So I was not recruited to the DA. I still tell people, can't recruit me. I go. I go where I want to go. When the time comes, I go. So spend a lot of time in the DA. Started the DA at university. There was no one. I built the student structure there. Got to Gauteng. Started rebuilding structures here with one of my best friends. He remains a best friend. He's still with the DA. So Kume. Everyone who knows me, they all know about Kume. We spend so many hours together rebuilding structures of the DA, then in the province, nationally, and so forth, and got a lot of opportunities in the DA. I think that's opportunities to lead, because many times when people leave their organizations, they don't look back and say, all right, what are some of the things that I learned from my previous position I was in. So because the D, it was expanding at the time. It was deliberate, it was expanding. Therefore, the opportunities to lead at a very young age presented themselves. So one got to start leading, got to lead the DA youth nationally, got to be elected in as a national deputy chairperson there. And things were still nice. It was good. We're expanding, going into communities. Then 2019 happened. I don't know. They decided not to expand anymore. They decided to consolidate. Hey, I did not come on a consolidation project. You want to consolidate? I've got kids. Hey, you want to consolidate? There's a country to save. Me, I'm on an expansion project. Anyone that wants to consolidate. So the day that RISE starts talking about consolidation politics, I just know I'm out.
Yeah, out.
I'm not in the politics of consolidation. So
Yeah.
so I mean, like there were a lot of opportunities in the DA that one like took advantage of. Got a lot of development when I was there. A lot of leadership development, and I mean, one of the things that I look back, even most of the people, some of them might be watching this broadcast. One of the things that we did, which I remain proud of, is that we used to run a political school. We started it. I started it with Kume, and we used to run it. We developed, helped develop a lot of leaders. Others are leading in councils, in parliament. Those that did not get the opportunity through the formal trainings that the DA offered, like the young leaders, we used to call it a platform for political deliberations. Still, because for me, knowledge sharing, development, mentorship, it's something that I like doing. Because I believe that there's never anyone that has lost knowledge by sharing it. Doesn't matter the little knowledge that you have. If you share it, you won't lose it. Yeah. But there's a chance that you can gain more by sharing knowledge. So I like sharing knowledge, and the basis of the political school was to share knowledge. And I'm glad that I had some people also achieve a better vision of themselves. So yeah, that was then. The chapter closed after 20 years in 2022, and the RISE chapter, we started writing it in 2022.
Yeah.
I think the RISE chapter precedes my departure from the DA. But that's a story for the books. That's a story for the books. I've got that picture that I drew when people were consolidating. I drew a picture, and I shared it internally when I was there. I said, "This is what we're doing." I said, "You see this vacuum? You are leaving it. One day I'm going to fill that vacuum."
Yeah.
And that's where RISE Mzansi, its genesis comes from.
Yeah. So Makashule, we've got probably another 20 minutes to go. I mean, there's questions that are in the chat that I will ask, but so that we can
I'll be short now.
We're gonna go into,
now that we are getting to RISE Mzansi, I'll be very short.
Yeah, we're gonna go blitz questions, blitz answers, so that we can try get through as much as possible. But yeah, I think let's talk a bit about RISE, because I think that's why we are here. What is RISE for you, and what does it mean for you at this moment? What are you responding to?
So RISE is responding to, let's call it, the absence of leadership, the absence of seriousness in the people that we entrusted with the responsibility of saving our country. RISE responds to what we then get to leave behind for our children. I've always long said that the worst thing that we can do, Tebs, me and you, because we are of the same generation, is to leave behind a West South Africa for our kids than the one that we've inherited. And if we allow things to continue as they are, we can almost be guaranteed that we'll leave nothing for our children. One of the things also, cultural in a way, as a father, you don't want to die and your children are hustling to bury you. So like, what kind of a father? It means you are not responsible, especially when you had opportunities to do something. obviously there are those that because of the economic situations, they can't do anything for themselves. But like when people will say, but when I played with the opportunity, you could have left an inheritance for your children, but you decided not to. You just decided to go and get drunk and play around. Now the money is gone. Now you're becoming a burden to your children, that when you die, they have to go to the loan sharks to bury you. That's if there's one thing that we should not allow ourselves to, it's that our children have to go to the loan shark to bury us. And at this stage, and also when Minister Gauteng Convenor was speaking, if we do nothing, the kind of debt that we are going to leave behind for our children will be so big that even our grandchildren will still have to pay for it. And we cannot allow that to happen. That's what RISE Mzansi is responding to. RISE Mzansi is also responding to South Africans who believe that they are being left out by those that they have entrusted to lead. They are not being taken serious. So in short, that's what we are responding to. But of importance, we have to get this country working again. We have to get this country, the people of this country, feeling safe to enjoy their freedoms and to build wealth not only for themselves, but to leave something behind for their children, and people being able to provide for themselves and their families. That's what the RISE project is about.
Okay, and Chief Organiser, what does that even mean? I've never met a Chief Organiser anywhere in any political structure. We know there are either presidents or leaders, there's deputies, there's secretary generals, there's treasurers. What is a Chief Organiser, and what's the significance of your role in the organization?
So I've always wanted to be an organizer. In my own political life, and not so much of the limelight person, So my job is primarily the ground game. It's about getting supporters. It's about getting supporters for RISE. It's about getting votes for RISE, getting volunteers for RISE, and ensuring that we have enough people to protect the vote. Because the worst thing that you can do as a political organization is to go get the vote out there, like we have seen with with what happens just north of the Limpopo River. That you spend so much time you are getting the votes. Come election day, someone just comes and steals those votes. And no one is there to witness it. So the organizer is responsible for also protecting the vote. Getting the supporters, getting the volunteers, making sure that the volunteers understand the mission of RISE, understand why we are doing what we are doing, and spends most of the time on the ground. Like it's almost like what you call a general of the ground forces. So that's what a chief organizer of RISE Mzansi is responsible for. And I have been entrusted with that responsibility because this is not a title that I will die with. I'm Makashule Gana. That's the name that I'll die with. The responsibility of leading organizing efforts will be passed on to someone else down the line. So it's not a position that I will occupy for the rest of my political life. No. We need to develop others to take over from ourselves.
Yeah. And how are you faring? How is the organization? If you were to, judging by the plan, the strategy, the performance, I mean, you are at the center of the machine. Politics is about people. Politics is about organizing. Politics is about making sure that you have the vote in order to get into power, use that power to then achieve, the outcomes and the visions that you've put on the table. So, what do you think is the state of the organization?
So I'll say 2 or 3 things. Maybe let me say 2. So I'm quite satisfied with where we are, the kind of reach that we have, having volunteers in all 9 provinces. It's not a small feat. It's not a small feat. We have volunteers across all 9 provinces of the country. And the last time I did a media interview, because I don't do a lot of them, sometimes you drag me into these conversations. I prefer to be organizing, as you know, that sometimes I just like being out there with my sneakers, speaking to voters. I said then, because the question was asked, where will you be after the elections? I said, hey, if the elections were to be held today, RISE Mzansi will be in parliament.
Yeah.
And I can boldly declare tonight that if the election were to be held next week, Wednesday, because the elections are held on Wednesday, they are never held on a Monday. Yeah. So if they were to be held on Wednesday, 3 days from now, RISE Mzansi will be in parliament, and RISE Mzansi will be in the Gauteng legislature. As things stands right now, that's the level of confidence that I have with the efforts that we've made from the organizing side. So we will have seats in parliament, and we will be in the Gauteng legislature. It's just the beginning of November, and I can tell you that by the end of November, my kind of work is to add that. So others, sometimes I like joking, and I look at the 2019 scoreboard. I like, hey, I've overtaken some people. We have overtaken some. Sometimes we need to, on a serious, we need to take a moment and look back and see how much we have done in the last 6 months. It's massive. It's incredible. It's incredible. And now there are posters of RISE Mzansi. When we started, when we started, as you remember, we started with a badge, that 5 rand badge. We didn't have a T-shirt. Now we have posters. So we are somewhere. We're in parliament, we're in the legislature. It's my intent. There's my next target. The first 3-4 targets, I've overtaken them from an organizing side. And so how we measure ourselves from an organizing, it's on the number of supporters that we have and the number of volunteers that are helping to get those supporters. And the numbers keep growing every day, because South African people realize, given the state of South Africa at the moment, doing nothing is not an option.
Yeah.
We have a beautiful country. We can't give up on this country. And more South Africans are coming out to say, you know what, I was not thinking of even voting. But since you guys came, you know what, I'm even going to get that ID, and I'm going to register on the 18th and 19th. And that's the impact of what RISE Mzansi has done to South Africa.
Thanks, Ghana. And I've had the pleasure of sitting and getting to know your politics, but maybe we have an opportunity to share here. One of the things that really drives you is the passion for the unification and the solidarity building of South Africa. In our vision statement, the word united is reflected. In our values, the word solidarity is reflected. And a question from St. Lawrence Mola. He talks about your vision for South Africa and how it aligns to RISE Mzansi's vision, but more specifically, he then also speaks around white Indians, colored people, Black youth, the unification project, as it were. Why is that so important to you, and why do you think RISE Mzansi has to be committed to that outcome?
So one of the things that at the personal level, that I believe in is that we are better together. South Africa will achieve more when we work together as South Africans from different racial, tribal, language, economic, religious backgrounds. You know, the 1994 project or mission. So when I say project and mission, I'm just using them interchangeably.
Yeah.
It was also about bringing South Africans together. And one of the most painful things that what I have seen is that the political organizations that exist now have given up on building a non-racial, united and prosperous South Africa. They've given up. They don't talk about it. It's like they feel like, you know, the only time that people talk about a non-racial united South Africa is when there's an incident of racism somewhere. That's where they dust off that no, we once wrote in Morogoro in 1959 or 1969, not 59, in Morogoro, of this building a non-racial South Africa. But then on their day-to-day life, it doesn't feature. And for us, it's central. It's central because when South Africans are feeling unsafe, when South Africans are going to bed hungry, when South Africans see that no, the treatment that we receive is not equal, and there are people who are driving the polarization of South Africans, then someone must be the adult in the room. And say, no, we are better when we're together. We are stronger when we're, you know, like the slogan for the Springboks going into the World Cup around stronger together.
Yeah.
That's what South Africa is, you know, and that's, for me, we need to find the best in society from all race, religion, social background, economic backgrounds, who can help unite South Africans so that we can build a safe, prosperous, and equal South Africa. Because if we don't unite, we keep fighting. There's no good that comes from fighting. There's no good. There's in no way. You know, if you were to check the time that South Africa was progressing, both socially and economically, yes, there was, I mean, like, racism has always been there in South Africa, but there were deliberate attempts to unite South Africans. But something has happened where now, instead of political organizations, civil society organizations deliberately working to unite South Africans, people now are like, hey, okay, what can we benefit if we divide colors from blacks? If we divide Indians from whites, if we divide whites from blacks, like, no, we'll have our small little organizations for colors and our little one for. No, that's not what RISE Mzansi is for. We are for all South Africans, and we must be deliberate in wanting to unite South Africans. You know, like that is what the goal of 1994 was, to unite South African people, so that together we can move South Africa upward. And for us as RISE Mzansi, when others have kind of abandoned that responsibility, we are taking that responsibility. Yeah. That's why we say 2024 is our 1994. And we're not going to give up on the idea of uniting South Africans, however long it takes us. We're not going to play the politics of expediency that no, maybe can benefit by pitting one race against the other, or one religious group against the other. No, those are not our politics. Our politics, how can South Africans live side by side, equally as South Africans, working together to save and rebuild our country. Those are our politics. Yes.
Some might argue that the 94 project was based on the concept of rainbowism, this united together, fast tracking a process of togetherness, but without, the authentic understanding of the healing process that has to come with that, knowing just how violent and how destructive apartheid was, and and also there's a question from Sabata here, which speaks to kind of BE and transformation. And so the question I have is, in uniting South Africa, in driving the solidarity project, how does that coexist with justice and redress and transformation? And this concept of equality, how do those two ideas, which seem polar opposite, how do they coexist in a RISE politics?
So they are not opposites. They are not. So the goal it's uniting South Africa. The goal is building an equal South Africa, prosperous. The mechanics. So the starting point. It's you need to accept as like the preamble of the Constitution. The first line actually in the Constitution. You need to recognize the injustices that, so the injustices of our past that continues to this day. And contrary to what many people sometimes put out there, actually many South Africans, including white Indians, they recognize that there's no way that we South Africa can move forward without addressing the economic and the social injustices of our past, which remain here. Because this is not a switch. This is not when those guys that hate us so much from ESCOM and they switch on is dark, and then after 2 hours we switch on. It's a deliberate project. Like the other thing with us at times, I think we like rushing things. There's no shortcut to addressing this. But what prolongs at times the realization of the objective is that we become impatient. I sometimes like telling people that, you see me, I don't subscribe to this cabbage farmer mentality. By the way, I'm not insulting cabbage farmers. I will explain what I mean. So a cabbage farmer, and we need cabbage, so that people must not say Ghana said cabbage farmers are not needed. But when you plant cabbage or onions, that within 6 months you are going, 3 months, 3 months at most, you are going to harvest. That's what happens there. But the timber farmer requires patience. From the moment you plant, you know that you have to wait 15, in some instances 20 years before the harvest. And I sense at times that people are not patient. Like they want quick results, like coffee, like instant coffee, like that's why you have Instagram, and like you want, all right, today you get in RISE Mzansi, you get into office today, then tomorrow we want to see you South Africans united. To get there, we need to graft, but it must be a deliberate. You don't say no, you are leaving it there. Like it's like one of my favorite authors or political leaders that his teachings, does inspire me in some instances, not all of it. It's Lee Kuan Yew from Singapore, and so his thing is like, was asking about looking after the garden or the lawn. It requires daily maintenance. You don't plant the lawn and then you leave it there. If you leave the lawn there, I can guarantee you that after 2 weeks in this rainy season, there might be more weed than the lawn. So it's the same. It's the same way that if we want to continue building the kind of South Africa, addressing the economic and social injustices of our past, it's a deliberate daily effort. It's not something that you switch on and off and like, oh, we switch on today. Then no, it's enough. There's enough BEE deals, and then you're like, no, we're done. No. There are many things, whether it's special planning, the education facilities, and all that. So you cannot do this overnight. So we need to say this is what we can do in the next 5 years, and then thereafter what we do 5 years thereafter. Because sometimes there's an expectation that you can do everything in one day, and it's not realistic. We are setting ourselves up for failure.
And what's the apex issue for Ghana? If you were given only one issue, priority area that you believe needs to receive attention, just looking at your life, looking at the country, looking at the way things are, what's at the top of the Ghana list in terms of political issues that needs serious attention?
We need to keep South Africans safe. We are not safe. We are not safe. Most of our decisions that we make is because we are not safe. If we keep South Africans safe in their homes, in the places where they work, in the transport that they use, then people are going to enjoy their freedoms. When you are not safe, you cannot think straight. You can't be innovative. You can't go back in some locations to start a business, because you'll put up a structure today, you put steel, and then someone will just come take it. So for me, safety is a big one. And it's no mistake that even our vision as RISE Mzansi, we talk about building a safe, prosperous, equal, and united South Africa. And safety is a big thing. Like I see how when people who feel unsafe, how it affects you. The trauma that you are speaking about. It's not only the trauma from apartheid. It's a daily trauma. It's a daily trauma in South Africa. Like the level of violence in this country, it's at a level. It's like it's too much. We take so many decisions: where you eat, where your kids go to school, which road to travel on. Where like it affects you so much that even when your car has run out of petrol, you have to kind of think twice if it's after 8 whether you need to get onto that filling station or not. That's how there are people there are cameras, but not even cameras are keeping us safe. So that for me will be the top one. Obviously, there are other issues, people providing for themselves, people being and then people in my dream South Africa, people will be safe, people will provide for themselves, people will no one will go to bed hungry in South Africa. No one will go to bed hungry. But we must keep people safe so that they can live to see the next day.
And we get this question quite a lot, which speaks to the significance of coalitions. We know that you come from the DA. Many times we have spoken about coalitions being the future of South African politics. What do you make of kind of RISE Mzansi and I guess our position and our thinking and our philosophy around coalitions? Because I think they're going to form a significant aspect of political life, and therefore it's a key question that we always have to navigate.
So one of the things that I like saying about coalitions, so people must understand that coalitions are formed after an election. What sometimes happens, people make pacts before elections. Those are not coalitions. Those are pacts to say, no, we are not going to attack each other. We are going to be civil. We are not going to go to each other's place. Those are pacts. We will participate in coalitions post the elections. If you were to ask me, because people have now created this thing that you must enter coalitions before elections, I was like, So you enter coalition as what? You don't. We are currently not represented anywhere. And going into this election, RISE Mzansi has to be the third way. There's no doubt in my head. It should not seek to be part of a pact or a charter or whatever thing that people want to create. We should trust ourselves. We should get the best to walk side by side with us, the best in society, the best in communities. And after the elections, we will then enter those discussions based on what is in the best interest of South Africa. Because that's critical. We should not enter coalitions just because like it's sexy, or you will score yourself an MEC position, but then it's most destructive, it's the most unstable. If the kind of coalition we are going to have will result in what's happening in Johannesburg, will result in what's happening in Tebogo, will result in what's happening in Tshwane. If they ask me as an organizer, as the chief, if we enter this coalition, you're going to have Johannesburg, you are likely going to have Tshwane, you are likely going to have the Tebogo and the other municipalities. We'd rather be in opposition. It will never be entering coalitions so that we share the slice of the executive cake. That should be the last thing. We should be informed by what's in the best interest of South Africa. The chaos that we are seeing in some of our municipalities does not inspire hope. So we need to make sure that we become the adults in that room to say, no, before we discuss on, we share the cake, we leave the cake there, and then first discuss on what are the priorities. If the priority is not keeping South Africans safe, the priority is not getting South Africans to provide for themselves and their families, it's not about uniting South Africans, then it's a worthless coalition. I will advise that, but obviously that will not be my decision alone. But if someone was to say, hey, what will be in your head when you enter that discussion? I'm like, hey, keep South Africans safe, and make sure that we respect the Constitution. Let's unite our South Africans. Let's ensure that South Africans can provide for themselves. They are treated equally, and we are working side by side in solidarity with the people of this country. Then I'm like, oh, it's worth considering. But they talk other things, no, it's not worth it. We'd rather be in opposition. That would be my advice. But hey, I'm an organizer. I'm an organizer. I'm not the organization.
So we've got 5 minutes. 5 minutes left, and I want to squeeze in 2 questions. Part of being in politics is about getting ready to govern and to put forward a proposition that excites people, that solves the most burning questions. Given an opportunity to kind of put together a bill, a piece of legislation that you think could fundamentally change, the South African experience for many people. What would you table? What would you throw into the pot for South Africans to consider as an important legislative intervention that can make a huge impact?
So one will be around the schedule of crimes, especially those that are. So there's what I call a crime against the people. A crime against the people. So we use this word corruption. What is it? What's like corruption is a crime against the people. Anyone that has stolen from the people, that's we must on that schedule of offense. It must be there next to treasonous. But that's what it is. It's a crime against the people of this country. If you are stealing money from a school nutrition project, and someone steals money from COVID, and we're like, no, slapping the wrist, SIU tries to recover, they will sell those expensive cars. I was like, no, man, we are being light on this. We need to reclassify the what we have come to call corruption as a crime against the people. So that would be one of the first thing that I'll start working on, the schedule of crimes, including those that are dealing with drugs in our communities. We need to be harsh on them. There needs to be harsh. Those that are stopping infrastructure projects, those that are running these extortion gangs, that is at the level of crime against the people. All the business forums, they are not. They are committing a crime against people. They are stealing from our children, and so that is one thing. The other one that it's a personal. I still need to lobby you guys. Yeah, I need to do a lot of lobbying, I must say. we need to see if we can introduce a tax break or a rebate for single mothers, and I'm deliberate on that. I don't want someone to say, but why don't we do it for single parents? If you want to lobby for single parents, it's fine, lobby it. I'm going to lobby for single mothers to get assistance from using the tax regime, especially when the kids are still going to school. So there will be conditions. Obviously, it's not free for all, but having been brought up by a single mother myself, seeing the struggles that single mothers go through, especially working single mothers, I think there's a conversation to be had whether we can't introduce like a tax break. But I'm not saying this as like I'm introducing a police, because I know some journalists are watching now. but I won't complain if someone says they quote me and say Makashule Gana says he's going to campaign within RISE, so that as part of our manifesto to have a tax rebate or a tax category for single mothers, so they get a little assistance to run their households. It's not easy. It's not easy being a single mother in South Africa, especially when you yourself you are not safe. You have to go to work, unsafe transport. When you are working, you are unsafe. You have to worry whether your kids are safe or not. Then you've got like we are fathers, but at least me and you are present fathers. We have a lot of absent fathers in this country. We have a lot of absent fathers. So there is a role that we can play there. So that will be another area. But so the keeping South Africans safe, looking at the legislations about how best we can keep South Africans safe, how best we can assist single mothers, and also the interventions around helping South Africans to provide for themselves and their families. Those are the kind of legislative that in the first 100 days of going to Parliament, I'll mandate our representatives that are going to Parliament. Please go and introduce these private members, because we have to build this organization.
Ghana, last question is you ran the Comrades Marathon this year, and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
One of the things that I guess the Comrades Marathon is a enormous feat to achieve. Those who run it will tell you that it's probably one of the most difficult things you'll do in your life. And in closing, what is running, and specifically the Comrades Marathon, what has it gifted you? What wisdom have you drawn that then reflects in your political attitude and how you lead?
So it's perseverance. It's also patience. Training for comrades requires a lot of patience and at some instance persistence and discipline. You see, when we go to comrades, like, hey, this guy, hey, you have lost. At least I've gained a bit of weight in the last 2 weeks because I haven't been running. But it's the discipline of waking up every morning, because if you don't wake up, then you are chasing a goal, which is to finish comrades, finish it within the time that you want to finish. It requires a lot of discipline. So for me, running assists me with, I get to reflect a lot. I get to have conversations with myself. Because, like in this age, forever your phone with you, people can call you. And so you don't get to be alone. So part of running that helps me greatly over and above discipline. It's have that moment alone, just me and my thoughts, and define some of my thoughts. And it's been I mean, I've done comrades 4 times now. I've got 4 finishers medals. Ran my best race this year. A couple of weeks ago, I ran my best marathon. So 3 hours 18 minutes. That's my best time. So yeah. And I once ran. I told someone over the weekend that I once ran from Johannesburg to Tzaneen. I did that. I ran from Johannesburg to Tzaneen, and that was to raise money. And South Africans supported me and Soli, and were able to raise over 500,000 to give to the needy school learners. Give school shoes, uniform, so that they don't in 2023 have to go to school barefoot. So I think next year a lot of my running I want to channel it towards charity work. Assisting learners, assisting child-aided households. So I've resolved that next year I'm running for charity. So I'll do comrades again, charity, 2 Oceans charity. Every race I run next year, it will be to try and raise funds for South Africans that don't have the kind of privilege that we have, that are still to enjoy the fruit of democracy. I think we have a responsibility towards them as well. So my running next year is all for charity. 2024, I'm running for charity. All races will be for charity. Yeah.
Any closing remarks as we sign off?
So South Africa is a beautiful country. South Africa is a country with great potential. It's got great leaders, and we should not give up. But changing the course of South Africa will require us to get into a fight. I use the term fight because those that have failed us are not going to give up their seats without a fight. We have to wrestle from them. And no one is coming to save us. We have to do this ourselves, and we must find the best in society to come with us to do this, because doing nothing is not an option. And for me personally, the mission for RISE, the mission for South Africa, it's about our children and their generation. We have a responsibility. We who have tasted the fruit of this democracy, we have a responsibility to leave behind a better South Africa than the one that we inherited. And I believe we can do it because we are the ones that we've been waiting for. So I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Makashule Gana, who is the Chief Organiser of RISE Mzansi, a father, a descendant of the Gana family who reside and come from the beautiful province of Limpopo, a young man who grew up as a herdsman and qualified as a mathematician and scientist, a man who has seen the world of politics, been at the throes and the front line of negotiating power for those who need it most, and is now at the center of pioneering a path for RISE Mzansi to succeed in winning the elections of 2029, 26, and 2024, 26, and 29. He's a leader of society, and what a pleasure to have spoken to you this evening. I want to thank everybody who has been with us throughout the chat. Unfortunately, I didn't touch all the questions, but I hope we covered as many as possible. Thank you so much for tuning in. to these fireside chats. I think we try to be as honest and authentic as possible, so that you can really get to know the soul of the organization. And that's the things that we say are not marketing gimmicks. They actually come from the essence of the people that form this organization. So thank you so much, Ghana. Thank you, everybody who's been watching and listening. Catch us again next weekend, where we'll be having another fireside chat. I need to check who I'm speaking to, but I'm sure it will still be interesting. We've covered quite a nice array of people. We started with Songezo. We've spoken to Vuiswa. We've spoken to Ndate Ish, as well as Lawrence. We've spoken to Faiza, and today we've had Makashule Gana. So we'll keep it going until we've introduced everybody to you. And then hopefully in future we can have open sessions where we can have other South Africans that have got a great story to tell. But until then, have a great Sunday and have a beautiful week ahead. As Makashule said, no one is coming to save us, so we must step into the arena and make the choice to rise from Mzansi. Have a fantastic evening. We love you all, and goodbye. Thanks, Ghana. Have a good one, leader.
Thank you very much, leader, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Shap.
Sure.